Please take your seats. We're going to begin this evening's meeting. We're going to have the invocation by Dr. George Freeman, pastor of Jonesboro First United Methodist Church in Jonesboro, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would, please stand.
Would you join me in prayer? We invoke your presence, power, and infinite wisdom, God of all peoples. Look graciously upon our beloved county. Where it is in pride, subdue it. Where it is in need, supply it. Where it is in error, rectify it. Where it is in default, restore it. And where it holds to that which is just and compassionate, support it. Our prayer is for the leadership of this wonderful county, a blessed place to live and to work and to spend our day. Our prayer is that you would keep healthy, safe, and in your watch care Chairman Turner, Commissioners Singleton, Hambrick, Rooks, and Edmondson. Grant them insight to recognize the needs and aspirations of the people of Clayton County, and remove any suspicions and misunderstandings, that they may honor all people and provide the best opportunity for all to have productive and meaningful lives. Bless also every department head, every employee, every citizen, every business, agency, all your people who have been called to be stewards of your gifts, which are so evident in this place. Grant wisdom to our board during tonight's presentations. May they act with great wisdom, which is their practice. May they honor you in all that they do and say. And may every person who comes to make a presentation be inspired by what is right, what is good, what is just, and what is in your best interest. Bless all of our proceedings tonight, and may what we do here honor you, for it is in your precious name that we have gathered and that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to announce at this time that the board did not make any amendments to tonight's agenda. I will also note that the executive session held following this business meeting will pertain to real estate, litigation, and personnel matters. And at this moment, we need a motion from the board to adopt the agenda, please.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, next, the board will consider approval of the June 3rd, 2014 public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2015 budget and the June 3rd, 2014 regular business meeting minutes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, we now have an announcement from our Economic Development Director, Grant Wainscott, on Project Candle Industry in Forest Park, Georgia. Mr. Wainscott.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and our guests this evening. I'm Grant Wainscott, Director of Economic Development, for those of you who don't know me, and our office is charged with attracting new jobs and investment to Clayton County, and we join you tonight for another in a series of exciting announcements that we have for Clayton County. Our last commission meeting, for those of you that were here, we had the pleasure of introducing the CEO of Chime Solutions, who was bringing 1,100 new jobs to Clayton County in the mall area. Shortly thereafter, we had another announcement several days later about a British firm that is opening up expanding a U.S. headquarters operation here in Clayton County. And if you read the news late last week and yesterday, we had some very exciting news from the Fort Gillem front on a large million square foot, $100 million facility as the first major company locating at the Gillem Logistics Center. Tonight we continue the good news. It's been a great summer. It's going to be an even better rest of the year. I am pleased to introduce to you and to our visitors Mr. James Ahn. Mr. Ahn is the president of the Americas for a company called Avex USA, whose parent company is Avex Korea. Avex Korea has decided to open their U.S. headquarters here on the outskirts of Forest Park in unincorporated Clayton County. This is Clayton County's first Korean headquarters operation. We're extremely excited about that. Foreign headquarters operations are very important, particularly to our trade and logistics side of commerce. Traditionally, companies come in, they'll open a sales and distribution office. If things go well, they may open up a manufacturing facility, and that's what we are here to celebrate tonight. Avex Korea is a LED lighting products manufacturing company in Suwon City, South Korea. They have been in business for over 10 years doing this specifically, and they have opened up and will have a ribbon cutting very soon for their facility. They're employing 25 new folks to Clayton County in international sales and trade and logistics, and investing almost $1 million in their initial startup facility. After that, there's a possibility they'll be opening up a large manufacturing facility also in Clayton County. And so we want to announce the project this evening. We sent a press release out about 3 or 4 minutes ago over the wire. So hopefully Kurt and your team will be able to get that out for us in the paper tomorrow. But I want to introduce Mr. Ahn, and please give Mr. Ahn a great Clayton County welcome and ask him to say a few words on their behalf.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Evening.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Dong Ahn. I came from Korea. I'm a director of the headquarters, Avex Korea, and I'm a president of USA office. I'm very honored to be here today, and I met beautiful Clayton County neighbors here, and also I'm very happy and glad, to be here. Our company going to establish the manufacture plant will be here, and we are very glad to hire the recruitment of the new local people. We figure about we need assembly forced here, and we need beautiful, nice employees, local employees, about 200 to 300 new employees. And if we establish the full operation manufacture plant here, and there will be, we need about 500 to 600 new employees in Clayton County. So I'm very honored to be here, and also I'm very honored to meet, the Clayton County neighbors.
Yeah, all right.
All right,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
The English is very short, but you guys
We understood.
Yes.
We
Well,
did.
Mr. Ahn, just I would just like to add, Mr. Ahn, on behalf of the Board of Commissioners here, welcome to Clayton County. We are very appreciative that you chose Clayton County to bring your headquarters to, especially the job opportunities that you bring. And you couldn't have picked a better county in which to have your business in. So thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I will mention this is in Commissioner Hambrick's district. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the project managers from the state of Georgia, Georgia Power, the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, and Sheriff Hill. Sheriff Hill was actually our first point of contact for this company, and we've had several companies that the sheriff has brought us, and convince them that while proximity to Atlanta is important, being in Atlanta is not as important as being in Clayton County. So we're awfully glad to have you here instead of downtown.
I just, one thing, if I can help. Mr. Winston and Mr. Clear, the Economic Development Department of the county. Why we selected, the Korean corporation to at the Clayton County, because Mr. Winston and Mr. Clear and Sheriff Victor Hill gave us right direction. So.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Wayne Scott, for the work that you and your staff are doing. You're doing a tremendous job. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Okay, we will now hear from the public. Citizens will be given a 3-minute maximum time limit to speak before the Board of Commissioners about various issues and concerns. And we would ask that once you come up to the podium to speak, please identify your county of residence. And I'll pass that to the chairman. There are some on the back too, Chairman.
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out how to pronounce this first name.
Okay.
Bakari Height.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
I would like to first off by asking all of the representatives from MARTA to stand, please.
From where? From where, sir?
Where did you say, sir?
Where did you say? Oh, okay. He said Marta.
From Marta. From where?
Now I would like all of the people from under the age of 22 to remain standing. MARTA's recently hired new unpaid interns to study and learn finance mechanisms, networking, and engineering skills on how to run a public transit system. Most come from Fulton County, DeKalb County, and the city of Atlanta. But we have bright minds, many bright minds here in Clayton County. And in order for them to reach their full potential, they need employers who will allow them to stretch their minds and prepare for their future. Student involvement programs can assure that Clayton County pupils have a safe environment to commune and interact, and to keep students off the streets, away from drugs, and most importantly, out of jail. I'm coming to you to ask you today that if you don't attract employers to Clayton County, at least help the students build a bridge to the promised land where they can. However, if you do want to keep the fine young talent in Clayton County, start a system where the promised land arrives right at the front door. Thank you.
Thank you. Bishop Jerome Dukes.
I am Bishop Jerome Dukes. I represent the Association of Clayton County Christian Ministers of this great county, to our Honorable Jeff Turner, and to this most distinguished Board of Commissioners. I start out by saying I love God and I love the people of Clayton County. This is a great county. I think everybody would agree with that. I am speaking on behalf of transit in Clayton County, and to just be real to the point, I believe that we need to just really set forth and bring transit to Clayton County. You have before you, and I hope you hear this very clearly, a historic and defining moment of one that can only advance Clayton County, and not only its citizens, but I believe this with all my heart, all the people of Georgia. I believe that transit, and particularly public transportation, is the greatest way of moving people, product, and ideas. And we need to really push into this. I believe that no serious metropolis can call itself progressive and cutting edge if it has not the ability to move its citizens. So it's time to get aboard. And I'm simply putting this, that I think MARTA, and I know this about MARTA, I'm going to call for MARTA to be that transportation agency. It is not just a governmental entity, but it's a successful, thriving business, one of $6.1 billion annually. And joining and partnering with MARTA also joins us with an award-winning land developer, a business thriving businessman, and a community developer. It gives us this ability of growing and enhancing our great county. It helps students to get to school and universities, patients and their health care services, citizens get to employment opportunities. And here's the key to it. What will it cost? 1 penny. I wish I could get somebody to just say 1 penny. I remember when I'm a preacher, so it'll happen like that, amen. I can remember when, amen, they were penny cookies and penny candy. And you telling me that a cookie can't get us transportation. A penny of a candy can't get us transportation. So I'm asking, not only will this 1 penny bring us and generate $49 million, but it gives us money to both operate or give us operation capital, but it also gives us the ability for, let's say it like this, equipment purchase of the future and expansion of land development. This is a great county. And I'm always saying Clayton County. You know, it's a compound word, clay and ton. Clay is a malleable substance that can be molded into anything. What could happen when we get this in Clayton County? And then a ton of it, it tells us how much we got of it. That's both in masses and volumes. And so we're appealing to the commissioners today to vote for this. Our citizens, I believe they want it. Amen. Oh, yeah. And I know this, that a half penny won't do. Somebody say it won't do. You know, we need a whole penny. So let's call for the whole penny, and let's get transit back in Clayton County so that we can not only get people to moving, but product to moving and ideas to moving also. I thank you for allowing me to speak, and we believe that you will do it because God's going to move on you.
Thank you, Bishop, for that mini sermon. Glenda Cook. Miss Glenda Cook. That says
It looks like Glenda, I think.
Glenda.
Glenda.
Linda Cook.
Mr. James Lucas.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Some of you are looking at me like you may have seen me before, which is all right. This fellow's a tough act to follow. Here I am anyway. I'm also, first I want to acknowledge your presence, recognize those people who have been fortunate enough to be elected to this wonderful position, to be here at this great time, this great day. This is indeed a privilege and an honor in our time. Atlanta is moving this way. Whether you're ready for it or not, got nothing to do with it. Atlanta is moving this way. So we might as well bring the transportation on with it. Many of the people out here, they miss it. They're entitled to it. They were uprooted down there, enrooted up here. We've got to make them welcome, make them feel like they are at home. This is the best place they could have been at this time here in Clayton County. First, I want you to say something about this penny. This man was right. This is 1 cent. I'm not going to bore you all night with a lot of long stories, but I'm going to give you one that has impressed me for over 70 years. A minister told me once in church, my pastor, of course, in one of his sermons, he said something like this. He said there was a rider on a horse who had come through a desert, and he found a farm. On that farm, he saw a well. He was thirsty, and his horse was thirsty. When he saw that well, he ran to it, and he saw a bottle of water there, and it had a note on it. It said, "Do not drink this water." It said, "Pour this water back in that pump, and you pump that pump as fast as you can, and that well will give you all the water that you need. You won't be thirsty anymore, and your horse won't either. Oh, by the way, before you leave, don't forget to fill the bottle. There may be somebody else coming behind you." That's what I want you to remember tonight. There just might be somebody else coming behind you.
Ms. Deborah Scott.
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Scott. I'm the Executive Director of Georgia Stand Up and the founder of Georgia Trade Up. And we're actually located at 250 Main Street in Forest Park. And it's a job and workforce development program. And we have students that we're training right here in this county that cannot get to us to get construction training. Between the Airtropolis, the second airport that Atlanta is planning, Fort Gillum, and the Porsche facility, there are jobs that are poised right up the street, but our workers need to be able to get there. So if you're for transit, please stand up. Yay! We stand for thank you so much. We stand for transit because transit equals jobs, transit equals industry, transit equals economic development, and this county needs and deserves economic development. We applaud you for your work and for your efforts over the last couple of years. It's been kind of crazy in this county for a while, but we stayed and we've been sticking by you all, and we want you all to stick by us. We need that 1 cent to go to MARTA, and MARTA is smarter. Thank you so much. We stand for transit.
Ms. Brenda Cook.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Crook, and I live in Clayton County. And I'm a resident. I don't represent anybody but myself. I represent every baby that I see, mother pushing her babies to Walmart, to Kroger's. I pass a gentleman in his wheelchair. I had to go and help him get across the street. These are the type of things that I see. I had to invest in a pair of moccasins because I couldn't afford a car, and I forgot to bring them, but they have holes in the bottom of them because I can't wear high heels on the streets when I walk. But I'm here to tell you that I represent the citizens that can't get here. And I represent myself. I can be an asset to the city because I am a creative wig designer. I make wigs for women that have cancer, but I can't get out and get resources for myself if I don't have transportation because I moved from Michigan. I had to start all over again. So I'm starting from scratch, okay? And I am 64, so I have the right to start all over again. I don't have to sit down. I can get up and move, but I have to be able to do that. I need transportation. I need to get to the hospital. I need to get to doctors. I got my NPI number. That's a national provider number. That means that I'm on Obamacare. I've done that slowly. I was going to Herzing University, but I had to stop because this bus has stopped in 2010, and I have 20 more credits. So I'm not just sitting down. I'm walking. They call me the marathon woman. I carry this purse because I carry my breakfast in here. I carry my soap and my water and all of my food. Every morning I get up at 7 o'clock and beat the sun so that I can get out there and get everything I need and get back home. So we need transportation. We're not in the horse and buggy days, okay? We don't have to be in a horse and buggy. This is modern society, and I need to be transported. Thank you.
Garetha Frank.
It's Gareth.
Garrett.
Yeah, the A is silent. Good evening. How's everybody? I just come to you guys. I'm with the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 732, off Pulliam Street in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a DeKalb County resident, former resident of Clayton County. I just want to say I was here about 4 years ago. It wasn't pretty, you know. I watched over the years as people became stranded, not being able to get back and get out of this county because reality set in, and some lost jobs, homes, and a sense of security was taken away in an instant. We lost a good sheriff, but now he's back. The people's chief of police is now our commander-in-chief, Mr. Turner.
Commander-in-Chief.
I hope each and every one of you took time to take in all accounts of what happened in 2010. We now have to move forward to a new and fresh start, leaving all the baggage behind. Each and every commissioner that sits here must now humble themselves, wipe away the dust from what was left sitting, causing a cloud to not be able to see where this county was headed. We all, and I mean all, from the chairman all the way down to the superintendent of schools, must roll up our sleeves, wipe our hands clean, and get to work on bringing the people's transit system back, restored better than ever, and continue to work to bring economic boom, jobs, attractions, and most of all, happiness to the people of Clayton.
Thank you. Linda Ingram.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Linda Ingram. I live in Clayton County in Riverdale. I want to speak tonight on about animal control. The building still has not been built, and we need answers. Who is taking the responsibility? The citizens of Clayton County voted in favor of the Splash Fund back in 2009. One of the projects was the new building for animal control. This was a 5-year project. It's now 2014 and still no new animal control. The make-do building currently being used was built back for guard dogs in the 1996 Olympic Games. Ventilation is poor. The drainage needs improvements. There's not enough kennels there for the animals that come in on a daily basis. Most important is the citizens voted for this animal control the Splash Fund in 2009. We live in a country where our votes are supposed to count. I hope that still means something. The Splash County project overview states that the animal control is in progress, but still zero complete. The money has been allocated, it has been earning interest over the past 5 years. Again, who is taking responsibility? I'm extremely passionate about these animals. I will continue to be a voice for them. We want the truth, no more excuses. The need is very urgent. So the big question here is, where do we stand with the new animal control building that our citizens voted for 5 years ago, and who is responsible? Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney McFarland.
Good afternoon, Chairman Turner. Good afternoon, Commissioners. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm sort of wearing two hats tonight. My name is Courtney McFarland. I live in Clayton County, and I'm also the president of the Caribbean American Advancement Foundation. And I'm also the leader for Clayton County Hub through Partnership for Southern Equity. Over 3 years ago, we have had several seminars, workshops. We have had meetings with some of the commissioners and also the chairman to talk a little bit about the importance of bringing transportation to Clayton County. Everybody on the north believes that it's the right thing for us. We believe that's the right thing for us here also in Clayton County. And we certainly, definitely want to reaffirm that position, that we feel strong about that. Let's do something together as a county, commissioners, our chairman, and the citizens of Clayton County, to turn this county around, and we think transportation is a good start in the right direction. That's going to lead us to better jobs, economic development. When you start talking about tourism, commerce, trade, transportation is what gets you there and gets you back to your homes. Last December, we lost a pretty dear friend, Karen Askew. She was part of the struggle in trying to bring the message out across the county about how important it was for citizens to get involved and get the message out on transportation and how important it is for this county. We're saddened to really have lost her, but I want to let you know she's been a real fighter for this county. She lived in DeKalb County, but she was part of this hub here, and she has really pushed and pushed and pushed to get the message of how important it was for us to bring transportation here. You've heard so much different stories of how important it is for this county, and we certainly support you guys in everything you guys have done. And we think it's time that the commissioners act to make what's right for Clayton County. Clayton County doesn't matter, and we are here to let you know that the citizens matter. We love Clayton County. We're not going anywhere. We're staying right here. So please do what's right for Clayton County. Thank you all.
Thank you. Tanya Finney.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Tanya Finney, and I do reside here in Clayton County. The purpose of addressing you today is to discuss the cottage food regulations passed by the Georgia Department of Agriculture in September 2012. Under these regulations, individuals are allowed to use their current home kitchen with non-commercial equipment to prepare non-hazardous foods for delivery to the end user. One of the requirements for registration is an indication that the cottage food operator has checked with their municipal and county governments to ensure a home business is allowed. With this passing, I felt the desire to turn my hobby of baking cupcakes into a business. At this time, the conditional use permit is required for those wanting to pursue this venture in the county as a home occupation. However, the cottage food regulations make the State Department of Agriculture solely responsible for licensing, home inspections, and fees, resulting in no cost or resources to be utilized by any county in the state. Counties stand to benefit through taxes that cottage food operators must collect from those who make a purchase. Eventually, I would like to open a standalone business outside of my home. Again, the county stands to benefit due to additional revenue from taxes and licenses. I am asking that each of you consider making modifications or an exemption for the conditional use permit, as other counties have for similar zoning ordinances that they had in place. This is a win-win for consumers, people like myself who are wanting an additional stream of revenue, and the county. I have brought copies of the regulations for your review. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And if you would just please give those copies to the clerk.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brenda Denman.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Brenda Denman. I grew up in Clayton County. I've been here 45 years. And in that time, there's been plenty of things to be proud of in our county. But as of late, I've watched as it systematically seems to be deploting. Businesses are leaving. People are wanting to get out of this county because of all the crime and different things that are happening. And while I can understand and can see the positiveness of having MARTA and some of our transportation of any kind being brought in for public use, and it all sounds wonderful, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves when we don't think about the negatives that we're bringing in as well. Amen. If anybody has been watching the news, we're seeing women or people that are wanting to be women are being stripped naked, beaten, humiliated. People are being robbed, raped, thrown in front of trains, thrown in front of buses. I mean, the list is endless. And while it's wonderful to have a transportation and a means for students to get to schools, people to get to doctor's offices and things of that nature, it worries me that we're also bringing in a criminal element that's just going to make our county worse and worse. Look, y'all have your time to speak.
Ma'am, address the board, please, and please be respectful of this lady's time.
Thank you. Now, while I'm not completely against having MARTA, I think it has a wonderful opportunity not only to bring business in, bringing people from other counties in to be in our county to see what we have. I can't close my eyes to the negativities that are there as well. So my question is, if we're all voting to have MARTA being brought in, what are you going to do to ensure that the crime that is happening in the with MARTA, what are you going to do to ensure that the residents of Clayton County are not going to have to put up with these kinds of crimes, that they will not be brought into our county? And if they are, what are you going to do once they're here? Because the crime rate is already high here anyway. Businesses are leaving left and right. Our taxes for our property is going down. People are trapped in their properties. They can't sell them for what they're worth. They can't sell them for what they have to pay that property off in their mortgages. They're stuck. So now we're going to bring other items in that's going to make the values of our property go down. Our businesses are not coming here because of crime. And you're going to add to it by bringing a company that is known for not taking care of their crime. What are you going to do to turn that around to make all of us go, hey, that's a wonderful thing to bring here, because that will ensure bringing businesses, our families, our friends, and people that need to get to their work, their doctors, and to school. What can you show us that says we're going to turn that around and make it a positive, so that those of us that are concerned about the negatives can then change our minds? Thank you.
Thank you. Just got a couple more. Jeremy Sistrom.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing me the time to speak to you. I'm with the local Clayton County NAACP, member, student at Clayton State University, and I'm here to talk to you guys about transit, like you guys have heard over and over again. The reason why it keeps coming up is because it's very important to us. We have 11,000 new jobs. The CEO of Translucent Tech just came up and spoke with us. 500 to 600 new employees just for us, for the Clayton County residents. You know, he's saying, like, we need to fill their offices, but we can't do that if we can't get back and forth. Portion of Atlanta is moving here. How are we supposed to get there if this is not the most socioeconomic, most well-off place in the world? We don't have cars. I'm a student at Clayton State. We don't have cars. Some of us do, some of us that can afford it, but we don't. So how are we supposed to get back and forth? How are we supposed to give those college students a chance to get to Porsche if we can't get them there? It's environmentally responsible because it's making sure that we get all these cars off the road. I don't want to see Clayton County looking like China, where we have all the smog in the air. If we can all single-handedly get ourselves into 30 people into one bus, it's better for the environment. And yes, there are negatives. It will give people more mobility around Clayton County. Yes, bad people will be able to get to point A to point B, but here's the thing. If you give them the opportunity to work rather than to steal, they will rather do that than to deal with what we already are dealing with. It's just simply social mobility and the way in our happiness and everything like that. I employ you as, not as a member of the NAACP, not as a Clayton County student, but as a resident of Clayton County who really strongly cares about his Clayton County. I've lived here, I've graduated here, I've been through here. And I just ask you to make an amendment to that agenda and just go ahead and deal with it. Thank you.
Danny Kirby.
Mr. Chairman and County Commissioners, I am here before you again on behalf of thousands of citizens of Clayton County and millions of citizens of America to beg and plead with you to stop killing our dogs and cats at Clayton County Animal Control. We want you to make a program for free spade and neuter available to the public so that we can eliminate the overpopulation of animals, unwanted, and eliminate the need to have to euthanize them. Look, we kill cows because we eat them, and we kill pigs because we eat them. Why are you killing our dogs and cats and throwing them in a landfill because it saves $1 of the $4.1 million that you have in a bank account now that's allocated for control of the Clayton County animal control system? There are so many people lined up in a row that are willing to take these animals away to rescue. My wife rented 3 vehicles this month and donated it to Animal Rescue to take the animals out of the kill zone and have them took to rescue. That come out of my pocket. That should come out of y'all's pocket, not mine. Please stop killing the animals. The 6th commandment of the Bible says thou shalt not kill. So please stop killing them. Thank you.
Tim Kirby.
Good evening. I am Kimberly Kirby, a homeowner here in Clayton County. I want to thank you for assigning a detective to investigate the animal cruelty here. I'm concerned, however, because I learned from this detective that not only is he to investigate animal cruelty, but more, his direct supervisor has asked him to investigate the worth of Clayton being a no-kill. I thought we were beyond this, looking at the kill rate that has dropped tremendously since Partners has been invited in. Why would we turn back now? The world is watching us. Should we give them reason to doubt the sincerity of our efforts to become a no-kill? We had a lady come in and reclaim her dog today. She had been down every open day to animal control since last Thursday, and not once did the officers take her on the bite side. Guess what? That is where her dog was. Improper escort is endangering the lives of the animals here. I am thankful that animal control will have cameras installed after the 1st of July. This is a good thing. Last week, a lady dumped her dog in the parking lot. If we had cameras then, we could have possibly identified her and prosecuted her for this act of cruelty. Not only that, the dog was put down yesterday. It was deemed aggressive after being trapped and put on a catch pole. You know, I think that would make me aggressive too. How about you? Once again, we need working scanners at animal control. We had a dog go to rescue last week only to be properly scanned and identified out of animal control. The biggest problem with animal control right now is the fact that Clayton County taxpayers are paying taxes to take care of Lake City and Forest Park dogs and cats. Neither of these cities have a contract with Clayton County, yet Forest Park, by contract, receives money from Lake City. This money should be coming to Clayton. The monetary as well as the physical burden outrages me. No sooner than we empty out 2 pens at animal control, Forest Park is bringing in 2 more dogs. They trap cats and raccoons as well. If they cannot contribute with a contract, we need to cut them loose. When can we cut the burden of these cities loose? On a good note, this is James and his dog Chaos, formerly Billet from Animal Control. James was walking Chaos and passed out in the parking lot. He went to the hospital and Chaos went to Animal Control. His dog then went to rescue. He walked into Animal Control from Arrowhead Boulevard. He had to walk 5 miles back home and 5 miles back to Animal Control with proof of ownership, only to be told that without a police report, he could not go back to look for his dog. We overheard his story and knew he was talking about Billet. We retrieved his dog from rescue and reunited the dog with James. It was heartwarming. Not only was James crying, but chaos was whimpering as well. Last but not least, for so many reasons, we really need to separate animal control and the police department. We must treat them like the separate entities that they are. Can you give us any information on the progress and location of the new building? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Timothy Vondale Jefferson.
Good evening, Chairman. How you doing? Good. That's Reverend Prince Timothy Vondale Jefferson. And I would like for you, sir, to ask your office to cease and desist. They have harassed me all day. I have a police report. Every time I go get a police report against the officers, the blue wall attacks me. There's another police report, sir. Blue wall attacks me. Another police report, sir, for my car being blown up in my driveway, sir. I was searched when I came in here, sir. I want to let everybody know I fear no man. I'm on board and I'm unbossed. I don't fear no man. Every time they touch me, it's a $1 million civil rights con. I'm gonna calm down.
Calm down just a little bit.
Okay?
Thank you.
But you understand, my life is in danger, sir.
I understand, sir.
I'm getting no protection.
But talk to us civilly. We appreciate
Civilly, I reached out to the GBI. There's a political clause in there that says citizens cannot engage the GBI. I've asked the DA to do it. They refuse. I asked for a letter Y. Asked the chief of police to do it. Refused. I asked for a letter Y. Did not get it. Brandon Tisdale, Special Agent Brandon Tisdale, told me to go to the FBI. The FBI now got it. A lot of people heads are going to jail. That was a federal civil rights violation. They came to my house this morning, sir. 2 SWAT members of the sheriff department with a supervisor detained me for 2.5 hours. Violation of my federal civil rights. No justification. Asking me was I going to kill myself or the sheriff. What an insult. I am a developer. I am one of the only energy solar panel developers in the world. I am bringing a bus here. We don't need MARTA. It's obsolete. We're knocking petroleum out. You knock petroleum out. I have a sun bus that's electric, solar panel. I have a bus, a hybrid electric bus. No gasoline, no petroleum. I've done my due diligence, sir, because I'm a businessman. Y'all didn't do your homework. You're welcome to visit my hometown. We got it in operation right now, sir. Okay. And I ask for your officers, the sheriff department, and the police department to cease and desist. Do not bother me. Do not come around my residence. I've been a Clayton County citizen for 10 years. And every time they touch me, it's a civil rights violation. They have no justification at all. I'm not scared of y'all, and I'm on board and I'm bossed. Leave me alone.
Miyoshi Bourget. Bouger. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Apologize.
Bourget.
Good evening, commissioners. 1987 saw the publication of a book called Where's Waldo? A book that featured a distinctively dressed man who set off on a worldwide hike. The Clayton County Office of Economic Development is writing a similar story. However, the story is called Where's Grant? I'm referring to Grant Wainscott, our Economic Development Director. Now, I recognize that you may say that I'm being overly critical of Mr. Wainscott and the job that he's doing, and in light of the recent announcements of the jobs that are coming to Clayton County. However, commissioners, I have to ask you, where are these people going to eat? Perhaps the billboard that sits at South Lake Mall tells us where they're going to eat. A billboard that slaps every Clayton County citizen in the face that says, "Eat McDonough." Exits 216 and 218. It's obvious to see what the economic development person in Henry County is doing, but I have to ask you, where's Grant? What's noticeably missing
in the economic development story in Clayton County is Mr. Wayne Scott's active redevelopment and revitalization of our retail sector. The Eat McDonough sign and the vacant retail stores are examples of his neglect and lack of vision in this area. In his 2014 Invest Clayton annual review, Mr. Wayne Scott said that as retail-centric and as service-centric as our jobs are in Clayton County, we must make the transition to a more stable full-time positions. I would agree with Mr. Wayne Scott, except the statistics contained in the Clayton County's Strategic Development Plan of 2011, retail and service jobs only account for 20% of our total economy. If Mr. Wayne Scott were paying attention to this data, I'm sure he would not call Clayton County retail and service centric. Again, I have to ask you, where's Grant? At that same meeting, he told the audience, shop local, shop local, shop local, and went on to say, if you're not spending your retail dollars in Clayton County, you're part of the problem in the retail decline. Well, I suggest to you that Mr. Wayne Scott is partly responsible for retail decline in this county because he's not paying attention to retail redevelopment. Could Mr. Wayne Scott's over 30 worldwide business and cultural trips answer the question, where's Grant? Perhaps if Mr. Wayne Scott lived in this county, he would know how difficult it is for those who do live in this county to shop here. Especially when stores are moving out of Clayton County into Fayette and Henry County. Amen. Commissioners, as we bring transit to our county, we need a focused economic development director who will actively work in every sector of our local economy. Someone whose work is so evident in every sector of our local economy that we don't have to wonder, where's Grant? Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Okay, next we will hear from Mr. Bill Ball, Chief Operating Officer of Tyndale Oliver and Associates, and I understand that Jeff Matarco, Director of T&D, will introduce Mr. Ball to the audience and the board.
That was pretty embarrassing. Ms. Barnes, can we get a copy of our parliamentary procedures and rules as they relate to public comment for each of the board members? Make sure that we're following them going forward. Thank you.
Good evening. Our consultant, Tyndall Oliver, Mr. Bill Ball, is here to present the transit feasibility study's findings. Y'all were all provided a copy of the document last week for review. He's going to quickly run through the high points of it and entertain any questions or comments that you might have. And I'm going to pass out a copy of the presentation for your use.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll wait for a moment for you to hand those out.
You were going to put mine in my mailbox, right?
Ms. Matarco, may I have a copy too, please? May I have a copy too, Mr. Matarco?
Excerpts out of the
Thank you.
draft copy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's really a pleasure to be here. We've done a lot of work over the last few months, and I'm looking forward with providing an overview of the results of the transit feasibility study. My name is Bill Ball. I'm with Tyndall Oliver. I also have team members with me today as well. Grady Smith with Metro Planning and Engineering, and Morris Dillard with DW and Associates, team members that are located in this area. Were very helpful to us on the project. So what I would like to do, this is an overview of what I want to cover tonight. Basically highlights of the board report that was provided to you a week ago. Hit the highlights and answer any questions that you might have tonight. You'll recall the objectives of our study are listed on this particular slide. We were charged with looking at transit feasibility within the Clayton County, looking at transit demand and mobility needs, looking at the costs and potential revenues for covering any needs that we might identify, and then also looking at the possibility of putting Clayton County in a position to once again look at federal funding opportunities for transit. We started out with a three-phase approach, you'll recall, and we were originally scoped to provide incremental information to the board to make decisions along the way and then provide subsequent direction. Of course, the state legislation that was passed changed our approach, really expedited the schedule, and it really provided a unique opportunity for Clayton County to move forward more quickly if they choose to do so with a sales tax referendum, which will be part of the presentation tonight. It certainly increased the focus of MARTA in the process, and we've been coordinating with MARTA staff as we've gone through our planning process as well. But we still end up with three key steps that we looked at in the feasibility study. Number one being understanding the transit markets that exist in Clayton County. Number two is coming up with transit concepts, transit solutions that would be responsive to those markets. And then number three, what is the feasibility of those transit concepts and when should they potentially be implemented, if feasible? What I'm really happy to say is the public participation has been great. You see a lot of evidence of that here tonight, but you should be proud of the citizens. We not only got a lot of participation in a very short time, but they were very passionate. They came out in favor of or against, but they were very passionate in their remarks about what they thought about transit system here in Clayton County. We've had over nearly 4,000 people involved in an active way in a very short time period involved in the feasibility study. We were also very concerned about making sure we had good representation throughout the county. This shows you in the table and a map that we had good representation from each commission district, and it reflects that we had a good participation throughout the entire county. In our online survey, about 80% of the respondents indicated support for Clayton County moving forward with funding transit services. These are some key themes from the public outreach process. I'll share some that are in support as well as some concerns. The first one are some support themes. Number one is the interest in providing improved mobility for all of the demographics of the county. Number two is the belief that it will provide stimulus for economic development, especially related to job access. Number three is if we're going to do it, we need to do it right. We need to be responsive to the demand. We can't under-provide, we can't over-provide. We need to respond to the demand that's out there. And then finally, it was very important for rail to be part of that vision for transit in the future of Clayton County. As far as there were concerns as well expressed at the public outreach. Number one is the increase in taxes that was expressed by many. There's also the concern about subsidizing a service that they would not use. We heard that from quite a few folks as well. And then finally, there were concerns about safety and the potential for increased crime associated with the transit service. Our job as the consultant was to conduct the technical feasibility as well. We looked at demographics, we looked at travel patterns, we looked at the economic development objectives of the county, put all those together for our technical evaluation and brought those to determine what we believe from a technical perspective. One of the tools we used is really a transit use potential analysis where we look at different demographics that are traditionally more likely to use transit. We look that includes the youth population, the older adults, the lower income population, households without a vehicle, persons with disabilities. All of those demographics are more likely to use transit. We put together that analysis and identify areas of the county that would have a greater potential to use transit. So the darker areas in this map reflect that analysis and it's very useful for us as we design service that might be out there in the future. So from our recommendation, based on the technical evaluation, based on the public participation, there is a significant transit need in Clayton County. Those mobility needs certainly relate to all the demographics that I just talked about in terms of the need for access to jobs and other opportunities throughout the county and beyond the county line, as well as providing an opportunity for those that do have a choice and providing them a mobility alternative that they might choose to use transit rather than their personal vehicle. So there's clearly unmet demand, both in terms of connectivity within the county, as well as connections to adjacent counties, especially to the airport and to the north. Likewise, we see economic development opportunity based on what we've heard from the public and based on our technical analysis, especially related to job access, as well as opportunities when we get to more premium transit investments, the development that we will see potentially around stations. So we use the conclusions of that analysis there to put some guiding principles together, and we use these guiding principles to put together what we believe is an appropriate service plan that responds to the demand that we see in Clayton County. So, and we have, it's important to note that we've met with MARTA staff on several occasions to coordinate this planning process so that we're on the same page if the board decides to move forward. We put this together for 3 time periods, first in 2016, then in 2025, and then in 2040. The whole concept here is to develop a long-range vision that we can start evolving towards over time. So this is the 2016 vision, and what we envision would be perhaps the opening year of operation if we were to move forward. You can see the conceptual transit network on this particular slide. It's basically a bus service-based network to begin with, providing good connectivity throughout the county with connections to the airport and north. In 2025, you see the addition of the red line. That's basically commuter rail connecting the MARTA rail all the way down through the county to Lovejoy, as well as the orange line, which is a premium bus service that connects from Mountain View to Riverdale. Some additional bus service is added as well, including a connection to DeKalb County by 2025. Then by 2040, a very similar network with some expansion, more frequent service, later hours of service, a higher level of service on that same existing network. So we did our best to put together a incremental transit plan that would work towards this vision. The next item was revenue. We learned pretty quickly that sales tax was going to be the most important discussion item as part of this process. We'll talk about that more in a second. There are other revenue sources that are critical as well. Certainly the fares are an important policy decision, and we anticipate that about 25 to 30% of the operating costs would be recovered by the fares. Certainly the SPLOS revenue has some money set aside for transit capital, which would either be like buses or shelters, but not to cover any of the operating expense. And then we mentioned earlier the federal grants. We would be putting ourselves in a position to now be eligible for federal grants once again when we get this, if we get this moving forward. Now, since sales tax is the most important revenue source, we want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of a half a penny versus a whole penny. And these are the key pros and cons that we identified as part of our evaluation. First of all, the half a penny. It would support the establishment of a bus system. It probably would be somewhat reduced from what was identified in the original vision for 2016. That really depends on the magnitude of the other revenue sources, but with where we are right now, it's probably something less than the 2016 vision that we've identified. On the other pro to that is that there is less of a potential impact on the economic development and economic competitiveness of the sales tax level that you would have at that point, 7.5% versus the 8%. On the downside, it would certainly not be sufficient to support investments in rail that we've identified, in the premium bus, and the more significant bus expansion over time. And likewise, you would likely get some less commitment from MARTA in terms of what your role would be on the MARTA board with a half a penny. With the full penny, you would clearly, there would be enough revenue to support funding the transit vision as we've identified it. That's first on the pro side. And also you would be guaranteed the full representation on the MARTA board, consistent with the MARTA Act. On the con side, there are concerns about taking the sales tax to an 8% level in terms of its impact and potential impact on the economic competitiveness of the county. So to help give you some perspective there, we put together a summary of what all the counties in Georgia currently charge in terms of a sales tax level. You can see that a majority of the counties in Georgia, over 100, are at the 7% level. There are 45 counties in Georgia that are at the 8% level today. I will say that in the core metro Atlanta region, the city of Atlanta is at 8%. The other counties are at 7 or 6% level at this point in time. So that gives you some perspective in terms of what the other counties in the state of Georgia are doing. That leaves us to a point of where the board will need to make a decision. The time frame is by July 1st. Do you want to to call for a sales tax referendum? If so, should it be a half a penny or a whole penny? And commensurate with that would be the question of joining MARTA at the same time. So if you decide to call the referendum, obviously the agreement between MARTA and Clayton County is critically important and must be put together as quickly as possible. Probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks would be appropriate for that to happen in support of that referendum. With that, I really appreciate the opportunity to have worked with staff on the feasibility study. The public has been great in terms of their participation, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from the board members? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, the board will consider a request of Ramona Thurman, interim purchasing agent of Central Services. And following this particular presentation, Ms. Thurman will also bring forward a budget amendment and present the county's annual operating budget for fiscal year 2015.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Low. Volume's low.
I have 7 items for your consideration this evening from Central Services.
Please take them all at once, please.
Thank you. Clayton County Telecommunication and Data Services Annual Contract Request for a 90-day contract extension First Amendment, RFB Package 11-08. The request is to amend the current contract with Windstream Nuvox Incorporated for a 90-day extension period from June 1, 2014 to August 31st, 2014, to remove circuits as requested by the Director of Information Technology. Windstream Nuvox Incorporated was awarded this contract by the Board of Commissioners on July 19th, 2011, and has agreed to accept the amendment. I request you approve the recommendation, authorize the chairman or his designee to execute all necessary documents to accomplish the intent of the contract, and authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget accordingly. The next item is Clayton County Police Vehicle Equipment Annual Contract Amendment Request to add additional services, Fourth Amendment, RFB Package number 12-34. At the request of the police chief, the request is to add an additional service for window tinting on police vehicles. The vendor is Transcom Services, who was originally awarded the contract by the Board of Commissioners on October 2nd, 2012. Transcom Services has agreed to accept the amendment. I request you approve the recommendation, authorize the chairman or his designee to execute all necessary documents to accomplish the intent of the contract, and authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget accordingly.
Could you speak up just a little louder? There, can't hear. I know the volume on the podium needs to be turned up if anybody's able to do that.
The next item for splost, milling, and resurfacing of various streets in Commission Districts 1 and 2. At the request of the Director of Transportation and Development, the bid is for a contractor for milling and resurfacing of various streets in Clayton County, Georgia. The Director's recommendation is to award a contract to C.W. Matthews Contracting Company, Incorporated. The recommendation is based upon the lowest responsive bidder that meets the specifications of Transportation and Development in the amount of $5,361,476.27. Funding is available through the 2009 SPLOST Fund. I request you approve the recommendation, authorize the chairman or his designee to execute all necessary documents to accomplish the intent of the contract, and authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget accordingly. The next item is for splost milling and resurfacing of various streets in Commission Districts 3 and 4, RFB Package number 14-23. At the request of the Director of Transportation and Development, the bid is for a contractor for the milling and resurfacing of various streets in Clayton County, Georgia. The Director recommends awarding the contract to C.W. Matthews Contracting Company, Incorporated. The recommendation is based upon the lowest responsive bidder meeting the specifications of Transportation and Development. The amount is $5,905,833.30. Funding is available through the 2009 SPOST Fund. I request you approve the recommendation, authorize the chairman or his designee to execute all necessary documents to accomplish the intent of the contract, and authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget accordingly. Clayton County Landfill Track Dozer with Landfill Package, RFB Package number 14-29. The bid is for a landfill track dozer with landfill package as requested by the Director of Transportation and Development. The Director's recommendation is to award a contract to Tractor and Equipment Company. The recommendation is based upon the lowest responsive bidder meeting the specifications of Transportation and Development in the amount of $388,000. Funding is available through the landfill bond. I request you approve the recommendation, authorize the chairman or his designee to execute all necessary documents to accomplish the intent of the contract, and authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget accordingly.
Ms. Thurman, I have a question. Explain to me the landfill bond. Did we issue a new bond, or is there bond proceeds left over from years ago, or is that just a typo?
With bond proceeds that are still available for that.
Cash from the bond that was
Yes.
issued several years ago?
Yes.
Still available?
Yes.
How much more money is available from the proceeds of that bond that was issued several years ago?
I don't have that figure with me, but I'll email it to you in the morning.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Continue on, please.
The next item is to renew the county's employment practices liability insurance for the period of July 1, 2014 through July 1, 2015, and to grant approval for the chief financial officer to amend the budget as necessary. The employment practices liability insurance provides insurance coverage for claims against the county alleging discrimination, sexual harassment, or wrongful termination of employees, former employees, or applicants of the county. Renewal of the employment practices liability insurance with Excel Indian Harbor at $326,571.44 will be a 0.74% reduction in the premium from last year's value of $328,992.56, a savings of $2,421.12 to the county. The final item, we have 9 annual contract renewals. Central Services request to renew the following annual contracts. RFP number 10-34 for automated red light equipment annual contract with America Traffic Solutions Incorporated. The renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. RFP number 11-04 for on-call transportation right-of-way acquisition services. The vendor is Diana Hunt and Associates Incorporated. The renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. RFB number 12-17 for miscellaneous medical supplies. M&M Merchandisers Medical Supply and Equipment LLC and QuadMed Incorporated are the vendors. The final renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. RFB number 12-35 is for hauling for transportation and development with a price increase with MC Trucking Company Incorporated. The final renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. RFB number 13-13 for fire extinguisher services with Blackwater Technologies Incorporated. The renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2015. RFP number 13-19 for roadway CEI services with CDM Smith Incorporated. The renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30th, 2014. RFP number 13-20 for commissary services for the prison with McDaniel Supply Company Incorporated. The renewal period will be from July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2015. Clayton County's Uniform and Mats Cooperative Purchase Annual Contract with Price Increase with Centus Corporation. The renewal period will be from June 1, 2014 through May 31, 2015. RFP number 0816, Inmate Health Care for the Jail Facility at the Harold R. Bankey Justice Center, request for 30-day contract extension. This request is to amend the current contract with Correct Health Clayton LLC. The amendment is for a 30-day extension of healthcare services at the Harold R. Bankey Justice Center as requested by the Sheriff of Clayton County. Extension period will be from July 1, 2014 through July 31, 2014. Funding is available through the general fund. I request you approve the recommendations, authorize the chairman or his designee to execute all necessary documents to accomplish the intent of the above contracts, and to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget accordingly.
Ms. Thurman, so we make sure that the contracts are spread correctly across the minutes. Let me just make sure we have this correct.
Okay.
RFP 1034, that's our remaining renewal of this contract for 1 year, correct?
Yes.
Okay. RFP 1104, a remaining renewal on this contract is for one additional 1 year period, is that right?
That is correct.
RFP 1217, was that any additional periods? No.
No, this is the final renewal on that one.
Okay. RFB 1313, a remaining renewal on this contract is for 1 year, one additional 1 year period.
Yes.
And RFP 1319, the remaining renewal of this contract is for 3 additional 1 year periods. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we got them all. I'm sorry.
1320.
Clayton County's uniform and mats. Did you cover that? The remaining renewal of this contract is for 2 additional 1 year periods.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any questions on any of the items? Hearing none. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Go ahead. And I have one item for under the Finance Department section. We have one budget amendment. It's Budget Amendment 4-93 for 2009 SPLOST to amend the budget in the amount of $6,200 for survey cost to Jester's Creek Trail.
Is there a motion?
I move that we accept.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Properly moved and second. Any questions? Hearing none. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, now's the fun part. Tonight, I'm going to bring before you an amended proposed FY 2015 budget. If you will recall, on June 3rd, we had our first budget hearing and the first presentation of the budget. I met with many of you who had some changes that you would like to see in the budget, so I have incorporated those changes, and we will discuss those tonight. Just want to give a brief overview again of the budget as we did in the first meeting. In accordance with state code, boards are required to adopt an annual budget. When we adopt the budget, we adopt a total budget, which for Clayton County consists of 6 fund types. We have the General Operating Fund, Special Revenue Fund, Capital Projects Funds, Debt Service Fund, Internal Service Funds, and Enterprise Funds. Here I'm showing the original proposed budget when we met on June the 3rd. We have an estimated beginning fund balance of $66 million. We have revenue projections of $172.3 million. Expenditures were projected to be $180.4 million, with a projected ending fund balance of $57,886,704. Under the proposed budget, we will be utilizing $8.1 million of our reserves. After making the changes, after speaking with several of you, the amended proposed, we will still have an estimated beginning balance of $66 million on July 1. The revenues remain the same, unchanged at $172.3 million. However, the expenditures increased to $185.2 million, which would leave a projected ending fund balance at June 30th, 2015 of $53.1 million. The changes that were incorporated into the budget, we've added a part-time mental health coordinator for salaries and benefits for that position, as well as salaries and benefits for a HIPAA compliance officer, an EMA planning officer, and converting 2 part-time code enforcement officers to 2 full-time positions. Also, I've included $5.7 million for Southern Regional Medical Center financial assistance. And we will be recommending an increase to the fire fund millage rate of 0.3 mils, and that would allow the general fund to not have to transfer $1.1 million. So we will reduce that operating transfer to the fire fund by $1.1 million. We would have to appropriate an additional $4.8 million from general fund to take care of these changes. So our amended FY 2015 general fund budget, total revenue amount including general reserves appropriation would be $185.2 million, and the same amount for the expenditures to have a balanced budget. As I just stated, we are requesting to increase the fire millage rate by 0.3 mils to 4.7 mils. That is below the maximum levy of 5 mils. That will generate an additional $1.1 million for the fire fund in revenue, which would decrease the transfer required from general fund by the same amount. The revenues and the expenditure amounts, however, remain unchanged at $19.9 million, almost $20 million.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What would be the difference? I see you have the 3.3 mils to 4.7, and the max is 5?
Yes.
So what was the difference in the amount of money if it was 5?
An additional $1.1 million, because we can go up to 6. We're at 4.4 now.
Up to 5.
We can go up to 5, but 0.6. We can go 0.6 to get to 5, so we did half of that. So if we did
the
that,
question was if it went up to 5, would it be what, 2 million?
Yeah,
$2.2 million. Yes, it would double that. Okay. So the general fund amended proposed budget for FY 2015, we will have an estimated beginning fund balance on July 1 of $66 million. Revenues remain the same at $172.3 million. Expenditures increased to $185.2, which would leave us with a projected ending fund balance of June 30th of 2015 of $53.1 million. This shows our revenue by sources. It has not changed from before. As I stated previously, property taxes is the main source of revenue that we have, followed by other taxes and assessments, which would include our local option sales tax. This slide shows expenditures by type, and what I did here was show I highlighted in red the areas that increased from the last presentation. So for our personnel services, it increased by $248,381, and our other financing uses increased by $4.6 million, and that is due to adding the assistance for Southern Regional Medical Center, and then the reduction of $1.1 million for not transferring to the fire fund. This just shows a graph of the expenditures by type to get a picture of how it actually looks for those that are visual. This shows our expenditures by category. And as I stated at the June 3rd budget hearing, we're still, courts and law enforcement and public safety are our two highest categories with expenditures. We have 35.23% for courts and law enforcement and 23.3% for public safety. Those two categories went up due to the positions that we added. Under health and welfare, that increased to $6.8 million. That was a $5.7 million increase. That is due to the assistance for Southern Regional Medical Center. And then the operating transfers out reduced by $1.1 million that we won't have to transfer to the fire fund if we increase the millage rate. Again, for those that would like to see a visual picture, this is how the expenditures by category come out. The budget as proposed and amended includes a 3% cost of living adjustment for all employees. As you all know, the employees haven't had an increase since, I believe, 2008. So it's a $3.5 million for all funds, with $2.8 million of that will be contributed to the general operating fund. Last year for workers' comp, we had a reserve in that fund, so we used some of the reserves to fund those workers' comp expenses last fiscal year. So we're gonna have to replace that money, so we're adding $1.7 million back to the budget. The $5.7 million for Southern Regional Medical Center is there. We added
question
two.
on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a one-time 5.7 mil?
This will be ongoing. They have requested $9 million, and the 5.7 is the equivalent of 1 mil. If we were to levy a tax of 1 mil would generate about $5.7 million.
So every year for how long are we to give them 5.7 million or 9 million? You said
9 million.
It's 9 million total. Yes, ma'am. This is 5.7 is a recommendation coming from fund balance for this year, and then next year the board will need to discuss how we will continue to sustain that, whether it's through continuing using fund balance or increasing the millage rate at that time. But that's a discussion that the board that we will have to have on how we want to sustain that particular financial assistance for them, because it is something that's going to be ongoing.
Okay, now you're saying 5.7, but I keep hearing 9 million.
The total is 9 million is what they're requiring, is what they're requesting.
So if 5.7 is given, then what happens if it's not the 9 million?
We will still need to have discussions on that. I've talked
The
to
hospital
Chairman
still,
Turner.
long story short, the hospital still will be in trouble. 5.7 million does not address the needs of the hospital. They need 9 million. 5.7 million is coming out of the general fund, so you're looking at an additional 3.3 that's needed. We also discussed other options. Share with us some of those options.
Okay,
in
the
terms-
options that-
well, let me say this before she even gets into that. Option becomes, do we want a hospital in this county or not? Do we need a hospital? You know, as far as for me, we need a hospital. How do we help the hospital? That's what we have to agree upon as a board to be able to pass it in one form or the other.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people thought when they voted for the SPLOST that was helping the hospital, that was it.
We made it very clear at that time that we were paying the bonds off of the hospital. It was for the payment of the bonds. And if the hospital goes away, we're still on tap to have to pay for the default of those bonds to the tune of 3-point-something million.
That is correct, because the agreement between the hospital and the Board of Commissioners, if the hospital defaults on their bonds, on their debt, the county has pledged, I think it's $500,000 I'm sorry, we have not pledged $1 million. We have pledged to pay that debt. It's $3.3 million, and we would have to come up with that money either through increasing the millage rate.
Well, what I understand, we aren't responsible for that full amount. Is
We're
that correct?
responsible for an annual amount not to exceed a half a millage
Right.
rate, which is approximately
The
3.1 million.
yes, but the payment is $3.3 million a year. But yes, that is correct.
But that's a
because there's-
one-time.
No, ma'am, until the bonds are paid off. We would
30 years.
inherit that debt. When that agreement is basically like co-signing for a car. If that person doesn't pay, then I would have to pay if I co-sign for it. So it's the equivalent of doing that. Did you want me to still discuss the options, or do you want me to finish this first?
How many more slides do you have?
3, 4?
Yeah, let's go ahead and finish the slide, your presentation, and
Actually,
let's
about 5.
circle back. Finish your presentation, circle back around. And
It also includes 2 new commercial code enforcement officers, salaries and benefits for those 2 positions. As I stated earlier, we converted 2 part-time code enforcement officers to full-time, and then transfers or support to other funds, fire fund, landfill, and E911 fund.
Okay, are these enforcement officers residential or commercial?
Residential.
The 2 new code enforcement officers are for commercial. 2 commercial code enforcement officers. Then the 2 part-time that we're converting are the current ones that we have now, which I believe are residential.
Yeah, they already exist.
They already
They
exist.
already exist.
They're residential
So
code.
we're
I know,
making
but
full-time.
they
We'll
are,
take them full-time.
but they will be commercial.
You got 2 full-time commercial.
It's 2 different, we have 2 different positions. We have 2 new commercial code enforcement officers.
Okay.
Then we're taking 2 part-time residential and converting them to 2 full-time residential. Okay.
Skip those.
So in order to balance the proposed budget to provide the assistance and support the other funds, we would have to utilize $12.9 million of fund balance versus the 8.1 as we discussed previously.
Say that
That
once more.
12.9 of our fund balance to, and it will cover some of the expenditures in general fund, $3 million, $5.7 million to Southern Regional Medical Center, and then the transfers and support to the other funds, the fire fund, landfill, and E911. And then, do you have a question?
No, I'll wait till we come back to the
Okay.
hospital. You know.
Okay. And then an increase in the fire fund millage by 0.3 to 4.7 mils. So the total budget amended, as proposed for all 6 funds, it's $288,128,837. And this is, again, a visual picture of what each fund encompasses of the total budget. And this is our revenue projections from our preliminary tax digest that we received in April. I've spoken with the tax assessor, and the deadline for appeals was last week, and he will have a lockdown digest for us tomorrow. So this number may.
Appeals we received?
I don't. He did not give me that information.
I think I saw him.
Is he here?
Come up.
6,000.
Okay. All right, so based on the preliminary digest, we have projected to collect $85 million in tax revenue. So the remaining budget dates, if you all vote to or agree to this particular budget, then we will have the 0.3 mil increase of the fire fund, and we will be required to have the public hearings. And the dates that were given to me by the tax assessor and tax commissioner at the beginning of the budget cycle back in the fall were these dates, in order for them to meet the deadline to submit the digest to the Department of Revenue the 1st of August. So we're proposing to have 2 public hearings on July the 8th, one in the morning and one in the evening, and then on July 15th at 6 o'clock, and then adopt the millage rate at the board meeting that evening. And these above dates and times are tentative. However, they will be advertised as required by law. And that's all I have for that. And I know you all want to go back to discuss the hospital now. Okay. Currently, as the budget that's been proposed, the amended budget only includes the equivalent of 1 meal in there for the hospital. I talked with the chairman today, and there are several different things that we could do. One is a millage rate increase to get them to the $9 million that they need. That would require us to increase the millage rate by 1.75 mils. That would generate $9.9 million. If we did a 1.5 mil increase, it would generate $8.5 million. A 1 mil increase, again, as I stated earlier, only generates to 5.7 mils, and they still are short the 3.4 mils that they need to get to the $9 million. So if we did the millage rate increase to get the 5.7, that would reduce the stress off the general fund reserves. We would still have to give the remaining balance out of general funds. That's one option that we have. The other option is to give them the 5.7 out of general funds and increase the millage rate by 0.75. That would give us $4.2 million to get them the full $9 million. So those are the options that we have to get to the $9 million. So just want to give you the data so you can make the decision on how we want to provide the support to the hospital moving forward.
One of those other options, I don't believe I heard, was to pay for the whole 9 mil out of general fund.
We can do that as well, yes.
Is that every year?
Well, we can't sustain $9 million out of fund balance every year. We would eventually have to do something other than paying out of fund balance. If we do the $9 million this year, our fund balance will be at $49 million at the end of next year. That would be the projection.
And if we do
versus the
9 million
51
next year?
And if we do we wouldn't be able to do the $9 million the next year out of fund balance. That would almost deplete us down to where we don't want to go.
No, we can't do that. So what we need to try to work out is, number one, again, how much are we willing to put in to save the hospital? They need $9 million. there's different options on the table in terms of how we can fund it. So really need to hear from the board in terms of what your preference or your way of thinking in terms of the hospital.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Wall, our financial advisor.
Mr. Wall?
Commissioner, I think it's fine for you to spend money out of your fund balance for this year, but next year you need to fund it out of property tax millage rate or other revenue sources. But your fund balance is really great. It's awesome. Y'all worked hard to create it. It's what gives you your AA credit rating. You can afford to do it this year, but next year, each year your support is determined by your yes vote or no vote. You're not obligating today to do a 10-year or 15-year commitment. It's every year. Y'all familiar, probably Jack's told you one board can't bind another board past a calendar year. So this is one vote, one time for this budget year. But I don't have a problem with you taking it out of fund balance. I can recommend that for this year.
Now, if we took it out of fund balance and paid, as you say, it would be good for 1 year.
Yes.
If we did the millage rate increase, would that be locked in at that
No,
rate?
sir. That'd be
Still
just
would
good
not be
for 1
locked
year.
in.
I didn't hear you. What was that now?
If you did it, every year's budget is just for that year only. So if you took one of the options that Ms. Thurman gave you and you decided not to fund it out of your fund balance this year, but you decided to do a millage rate, that doesn't mean you got to do that same millage rate next year.
I have a question. Ms. Thurman, are you also comfortable taking the full 9 out of general fund the way our financial advisor just suggested?
For this year only, yes, I am.
For this year only?
Yes, this year
Okay.
only.
But we still would have to look at
Doing something next year.
in
Yes.
terms of a millage increase, because we can't sustain.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman. I heard it all 3 times. The next question is, what percentage increase or growth of our tax digest year over year would be necessary to increase at the current millage rate the $9 million?
We would have to have a little, almost 2% increase. We had a 1% increase this year, and that generated about right at $3 million. So if we double that, that'll give us $6 million. If we had a 2% increase, we should get about $6 million. If we had an increase in the tax digest next year.
So if our tax digest continues to increase at the growth rate that it currently is, then that decision we have to make next year may be that there isn't a millage rate decision to come up with next year's 9 million if we decide to come up with 9 million next year.
I think you would still have to come up with the millage rate, but not as much, not the full 2 mills or the 1.5 mil, but it would have to be some mill increase, but at a lower amount if the digest continues to grow over the next few years.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
I do. So the increase in the mill would just be dedicated to the hospital?
Yes.
And that would be ongoing?
No, as Mr. Wall stated, the millage rate that you approve for this year, if you do it this year, it's only it's for good for that 1 year. Each year you have to approve a millage rate. So if you decided next year that, well, we don't want to do this much, we don't want to do any millage rate at all, you have that prerogative to do that as well, but we have to fund it from somewhere else.
No, what I mean is,
Can't legally dedicate.
That's not my question. What I mean is, once we increase the mill, we're not reducing it the next year, correct?
You could if you wanted to.
But traditionally, we have not.
Traditionally, we have not. That is
So
correct.
what we're saying is, once we vote to increase the mill, it will remain there unless we vote to decrease it, correct?
That is correct.
So that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
We would
yes.
have voted to increase the mill,
Right.
and that 1 mill, whatever that mill is, would be to fund the hospital, correct? That would be.
That
what
would be,
you-
why, yes, because we're adding expenditures on the expenditure side of that to fund the hospital's financial assistance. So we're increasing the millage rate by that amount to get that same amount, to generate the amount of revenue to cover that expense.
Mr. Wall
Does that
might
make sense?
remember this. Some years ago, there was actually on our tax bill where we did that extra mill for the hospital. Half a mil for, it was just did it 1 year, and the next year we took it off.
And I'll speak to that for a minute, Commissioner. The reason that went away was the hospital asked you to guarantee their debt in 2010. And if you guaranteed their debt, you didn't have to give them that $3 million from a half a
Right.
mil. And so, that's why it went off in 2010.
So in 2010, the board guaranteed a debt
Yes, ma'am.
for which we were paying the bonds off.
Correct. Because the hospital, you know, last year, their fiscal year, same as yours, last year the hospital lost about $24 million, $22 million, $24 million. And the hospital came to us with a business plan. They were gonna cut 12, and they wanted 12 to come from you for indigent care. They said they're spending about $22 million a year for indigent care in Clayton County, and they just couldn't keep doing it. They were losing money hand over fist. And so we asked the voters to approve a SPLOST that would pay off a 20-year bond in 6 years with the SPLOST. And that saves the hospital $3 million a year. That's what their annual payment was on the debt. So that left $9 million of the $12 million piece that they had asked us. You don't have to give them the whole 12. You don't have to give them this extra 9. You could do what's in the budget, the equivalent of $1,500,006, or you can give them 9. The hospital has said, though, that they've cut 12. If we only give them 5.6, they'll still be losing money. So they would have to cut further, or go out of business.
Let me get my head around this. If we do 5.7 from the general fund, we could do 0.75, and that would be the equivalent of 9 million.
Yes.
And what kind of impact would that have on a home for 150,000?
Okay, if we do a 0.75 millage rate increase on a $150,000 home, that'd be $52.70 additional property taxes.
That's a year.
A year, yes, at the new millage rate.
How about, aren't we also gonna go up a mill for the, fire fund?
Yes, that would be an additional $15 for those that live in unincorporated Clayton County, that tax will be assessed on, yes. So if an individual like myself that lives in unincorporated Clayton County, my tax bill will go up $67.70 for next year for fire.
Expressed as a percentage, how much is that?
I'm sorry?
Expressed as a percentage, so it'd be 0.75 mils plus the 0.3 mils, so we're increasing the entire millage rate by 1.05 mils?
Yes.
And that divided into the 14.661 is roughly an 8% property tax increase? Is that what you were talking about?
Hold on. Oh, you got it.
1.05 divided by 14.661.
You did it wrong, 14.661. 7.16.
I was a little off, I apologize.
Okay.
So we're talking about a 7.16% increase in property tax rates, or we could pull it from excess reserves that both our financial advisor and our CFO say they're comfortable doing.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
And then next year.
We got to worry about next year, whether we raise taxes, lower taxes, or keep them the same. That's a year from now.
But it'd be
The whole Little Luck Affordable Health Care Act will
That's
fix this, and there won't be an issue.
Well, you know, this is part of the conversation I wanted us to have before we voted in May to approve this, to wait until November. But anyway, that's.
We did. We had this in January, and the chairman
We did come up with a
said,
plan.
No, the hospital they couldn't wait until November. It would have
Can't
folded
wait
before
now.
then. So that wasn't an option for us to discuss it in November or have it on November, vote on it. Okay, so we really need to make a decision as to, number one, if we even want to help the hospital, which would be drastic in terms of them possibly folding and closing down. Because you're talking about lives, you're talking about jobs, you're talking about a way of life here, a quality of life here in Clayton County. Or we adopt one of these options and move forward. So what is more palatable?
Mr. Chairman, I'm comfortable adopting the budget as Ms. Thurman represented, not adding $9 million. The $5.7 million to the hospital is what I'm comfortable with.
Anybody have any other thoughts?
just to elaborate on that, Commissioner Rooks, you're suggesting that the hospital not get the money they're asking?
I'm suggesting we give them, what, $5.7 million.
And what about the difference between the 9 and the 5.7?
We'd hope that they can cut more expenses.
So you're hoping that they cut more? Okay, I just want to make sure I understood. I'm in favor of amending the proposed budget from 5.682 million up to 9, which would increase this, I think, to 188 point. That's and giving them without a property tax increase, and then we deal with next year and hope the Affordable Health Care Act fix it, or tax digest goes up, or all these new jobs that are being created in Clayton County help people get insured health care. And we do what we have to next year as well. That's what I think we should do. I think we should take it from general fund with no property tax increase.
But this particular one doesn't have anything to do with property tax increase. The 5.7?
Well, I know, but I don't believe that the hospital can cut an additional $3.3 million. I've attended all those meetings over the last 9 months with our chairman and with our CFO and with our financial advisor and our legal counsel and their financial advisors and their legal counsel, and I'm convinced that they don't, there's nothing enough to cut, not that deep. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Hambrick, you have anything?
I'm just listening, trying to make up my mind, but I already have a presentation I want to make before the vote is taken.
Ms. Singleton?
No, and I don't have anything to say.
Okay. Ms. Hambrick, if you've got a presentation.
No, I mean, what are we voting on? Are we voting yet? Or?
No, you said, I don't know what your presentation was.
I just want to
thought
see
you
how
said-
the vote, I mean, how we gonna, with the motion, what is the motion gonna be?
Well, we would
That's what
have
I'm
to
waiting to
amend
see.
her requested budget. Now, which amendment? We have 2 on the table. Now, my whole thing is, the hospital needs to be saved. We need to come up with $9 million some kind of way. And at this point, hearing the only option outside of the military increase, and I understand nobody wants to increase that, is Commissioner Edmondson's proposal for the $9 million to come out of general fund. So,
Is that a motion?
do you want to make a motion to amend for the $9 million?
If there's support of the board, I would be perfectly comfortable taking this opportunity to make a motion that we accept the CFO's proposed amended budget with the additional change of the assistance for Southern Regional Hospital to $9 million, which would, I believe, increase the fiscal year 15 budget to $188,532,395.
That is correct. If we give them the full $9 million, the amended proposed budget amount for FY 2015 would be $532,395.
And one final question before I make that my motion for the evening. Even if whatever dollar amount is allocated for the hospital, the money are not yet dispersed to the hospital until such time that there's an agreed upon and executed memorandum or intergovernmental agreement. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. but
Legal
I'm
shaking
gonna-
their head, yes. So by allocating these funds within our annual operating budget without a property tax increase, we're not just giving them the $9 million a check tonight on the way home. We're actually still have our intergovernmental agreement with whatever provisions, including improved customer service or board participation or whatever. That's correct, legal?
I'd like to know what the agreement is.
We haven't got that yet.
Plan.
Mr. Hancock.
Discussions that we've been a part of what we'll have to do is there'll have to be an intergovernmental agreement between the commissioners and the hospital authority. The hospital authority is the interim there because they are the group that is actually able to fund through the hospital itself the indigent care. So there has to be an agreement. No money will be spent, no money will be dispersed until that agreement takes place. The agreement, the terms of that agreement, as has already been indicated, it's a 1-year agreement. The code specifically allows you to contribute to indigent care within the county. The hospital nonprofit corporation has agreed that they will allow the Board of Commissioners to appoint 25% of their board, which is 4 board members. So this body will then, once that agreement's executed, will be appointing 4 board members who will serve on the hospital's board of directors and I think the agreement, I hadn't got my notes, but I believe one of them will serve on the executive committee of that board. Two of them will serve on the executive committee of that board of directors. Those are the basic terms of the agreement. The money can only go for indigent care, so that's the only thing you're legally authorized to contribute towards.
Well, then I'll make it in the form of a motion.
All right, it's a motion on the table. Is there a second? I'll second it. Are there any questions or discussions?
Yes, I have a comment I would like to pass out to you all and anybody else that would like a copy. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I am very proud of the part that I have played in helping to guide this county through some very difficult financial challenges. I'm also very proud that during my first term, we had a plan which helped us to build a substantial reserve that we could use to modernize our equipment, improve our technology, and ultimately lower the cost of government and tax burden to our taxpayers. This lower tax burden would create more spendable cash for our citizens, help increase business profits, and improve our local economy. To accomplish that goal, we made sound financial decisions based on a fundamental premise, sustainability. Simply put, if we created an ongoing expense, we needed to identify an ongoing revenue. Sadly, the budget being presented tonight is not based on this sound fiscal principle. It raises the millage rate, or taxes possibly, for those of us who live in unincorporated Clayton County. At the same time, committing to expenses which exceed revenues by almost $13 million. $13 million that will have to be taken out of our reserves on an ongoing basis until the reserve is used up. We are being asked to vote on a proposal, which the CFO and I agree, is not sustainable. In addition, as predicted by Commissioner Singleton and I last year, the amount everyone pays in taxes will increase over and above the millage increase due to the concessions made by this board to the cities in the loss negotiations. The issues I mentioned are serious enough for me to vote against this proposal. However, when I consider the fact that this budget contains a contribution to Southern Regional Hospital that the CEO of the hospital says is insufficient, but now I can change that because for 1 year it is sufficient to save from a financial ruin. I really have to question the logic of what we are doing. Why lead the people to believe they were voting to save the hospital? Then vote to contribute $6 million, now $9 million, or more of our savings, and watch the hospital become insolvent. There are many items in this budget worthy of my support. Unfortunately, this budget is fundamentally flawed, and I believe, and put on the path of possible bankruptcy if we go down this same thing every year. This is a path I will not vote to go on.
I have a question for Commissioner Hambrick.
Commissioner Rooks?
Mm-hmm. When we, well, not necessarily for Commissioner Hambrick, but for everybody, we had a retreat in January. And at that retreat, we were told $12 million. Whether or not we support it or not, it was $12 million, right?
For the hospital?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and that the SPLOS that was passed would be $3 million.
That would really
So
for about $3
12
million.
minus 3 equals 9,
Yes.
right? So we knew, whether or not we supported or not, that $9 million was still lingering out there. We just needed to decide how it would be funded or if we would agree to the funding. So
Yes.
this was discussed back in January, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in your financial expertise, is the direction the board heading leading the county into bankruptcy, Mr. Wall?
No, ma'am.
Well, that's a good point because
I mean, I like
you
to
said that if we take money out of the general fund to pay for this,
Right. Commissioner
we would be
Hamrick said-
okay.
Commissioner Hamrick said in her comments, if we continue to do that, it would cause.
And we agree. I definitely agree with that point.
Will not hurt us.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add my opinion to that. You know, I have to agree with Commissioner Hambrick. Regardless of what any political ploys that have been stated or used or whatever put out in the public, previous board did one heck of a job and making some sound financial keeping this county at a good financial position. We made some tough decisions. We built up that reserve, as you see now. And I agree with Commissioner Hambrick. I'm just not willing to put all that hard work just to see it go to waste. And also, I don't know if Commissioner Edmondson remember, I'm not trying to throw you in it just because you and I came on the board at the same time. When we originally came on, once again, that reserve was down low. We worked to build it back up. So that's just my opinion.
And I can appreciate your opinion, but in my opinion, we're not wasting money when you're saving a hospital that's dedicated to saving lives and serving the citizens of Clayton County.
And it's not a matter of just, none of us on this board want to see the hospital go away.
Thank you.
None of us. And I'll make that clear, and I think Commissioner Hambrick and I have said that over and over and over. You know what we've been saying since January, let's get a good plan. None of us want to see this hospital closed. None of us do. And so, again, that's my opinion. I'm not stating it for any kind of argument or whatever, but that's just it.
And still to this date, we don't have a plan, because now we're talking, we spend this amount this year, and then we're saying, wait till next year. What happens next year? So that's not a plan.
Commissioner Singleton, you and Commissioner Hamrick and Commissioner Edmondson did a great job. The county's in great financial shape, and I gotta hand it to you. During the recession, when the tax digest was falling dramatically, y'all made the hard decision to raise taxes. I think it was about 8 mills, and the fund balance is in great shape, and no question about it. Last year, fiscal year 13, all 5 of you were here in 13, you increased fund balance by $2 million last year. You did that without a property tax increase, just by holding the line on expenses and managing everyday affairs like you're supposed to. And so really, what we talked about in January, which is a decision before you tonight, is do you want a hospital? And you can fund it either with $9 million one time out of the fund balance, or you can raise property taxes. And all we as staff are telling you is that if you wanted to delay the tax increase till next year, you can. And that lets you take a decision next year as to whether you want to have a hospital or not next year. Because the hospital management's telling us that they can no longer afford to have a hospital, just like Grady gets funding from both DeKalb and Fulton County. Our patient base, our payor mix is like Grady's, such that we have to contribute to the healthcare system in order to have a healthcare hospital.
Okay, and again, I'm not against the hospital. I've used the hospital, I have in the past, and continue to use it as long as it's in existence. My thing is the budget, the overall budget, and the plan. Again, I've been talking about the plan since, back in February.
Yes, January. And the plan that we adopted in January was to ask the voters to approve a SPLOST to pay off $50 million of hospital debt, which would save them $3 million a year, and decide how we might go about funding the other $9 million, hoping that the hospital could cut more. And they have cut $12 million. They say that even though they've got increases, healthcare cost is increasing daily for their fiscal year 14 budget. They're on the same fiscal year as you. They tell me that they've cut, I think, $14 million for the fiscal year 15 budget, and they still are predicated on a break even, getting your $9 million today.
Yeah, and a part of the plan, I didn't want to go here where I'm going now, but this board spent, and I still don't know the full amount that we spent on a forensic audit. You'll give it to me? Okay, and we didn't bother to do a forensic audit of the hospital. I mean, this is our taxpayers' money. And if we're gonna do a forensic audit of the county, we should do a forensic audit on all.
The hospital's private, right?
Ma'am?
Hospital's private?
It is, yes, ma'am.
Can we,
But if our taxpayer dollars
can we,
are
as a
going-
county board, do a forensic audit on a private entity?
No, ma'am.
I'm done.
Okay, is there any other questions from board members?
I just want to say too, and Mr. Wall, I wish you would not phrase it as if we're saying we want the hospital to fail.
Exactly.
Like I said, we have
Exactly.
reiterated
Well, you
that
keep-
over and
Thank
over
you.
and over.
And that's
That is
not
the
the-
issue.
thank you.
And earlier, when that vote was taken to ask the voters to have the money for the SPLOST to support the hospital. If you recall, Commissioner Hambrick and I did not support that because, again, we were calling for a sustainable plan from the hospital. And once again, we saw that once that was approved, it was that still wasn't the fix. And that's what was kind of sold to the public. If you don't get this, it's going to fail. So my whole point is, please refrain from saying, whether we want the hospital or not.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
not the issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions, statements? All right, it's been moved and probably second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, now,
Motion
who
fails.
did nay other than Singleton, Gale,
Emerson
Hambrick?
and Turner was for it. The other three opposed. Hambrick, Singleton, and Rooks opposed.
Opposed the 9 million. Okay, all right.
Opposed the full
So
budget.
it
full
didn't
budget.
pass? That
The
didn't
budget
pass?
didn't
A
pass.
budget amendment, yes.
It did not pass,
Not
okay,
amendment, but the
okay.
budget item itself.
We're gonna entertain another motion for the 5.7, or for what Ms. Thurman presented. If there's no support, then there's no support.
And the other amendment is to increase property taxes, is that right?
No, ma'am. Ms. Thurman presented an amended budget from what she did at the budget hearing. My motion is to accept the amended budget presented, which is a 5.7 million to the hospital, not $9 million. That's my motion.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
It
Motion
failed due to a
fails.
lack of a second, okay.
Yes, due to a lack of a second.
So we need to have a meeting to discuss how we're going to fund the hospital, if we're going to fund the hospital, and have a budget approved by June 30th, sometime between
So
now
we're
and
gonna have
June
to have a
30th.
special call meeting.
We would have to have a special call meeting, yes, and I'm required to advertise a week in advance. So we would have to have an advertisement, if we do it next week, I have to have it advertised in the paper this week.
What if
tomorrow,
we
actually.
don't adopt a budget by July 1st?
Well, state law just says that you have to adopt a budget. It
What
doesn't
are
say
the
what happens
recourse?
if you don't.
The state law does not provide for any specific penalties or violations other than the fact that you are in violation of state law because it requires you to have an adopted balanced budget. There are some instances where I think for the hotel motel tax, you may not be able to collect taxes
That is correct.
from those tax resources.
It would also affect our credit rating. We won't be able to collect any hotel motel taxes, and there are some grants that we may not be able to receive the revenue on or be awarded because of the lack of having an approved budget.
No revenue, no employee payments,
No,
no
we would have to
income.
operate off of our
reserves.
reserves, yes, yes.
Which will be decreasing.
In about 3 months, we would probably,
Well, if the
3 to 4
hospital
months,
defaults,
we
it's gonna
would.
decrease anyway because we're gonna have to pay a $3 million payment every year.
If we don't provide any support to the hospital at all, and the hospital closes, then they will default on their bonds. We will have to pay the $3.3 million annually every year.
That's not true in our legal counsel. Remember, we defeased those bonds with the SPLOST, so that's over and done with.
But if,
Yeah. I was about to say, what was the SPLOST all about?
even if the hospital closes, we
Mhm.
okay.
They're paid off. There's nothing to default on.
Oh, then, okay.
It's come from
It will
SPLOST.
come from the SPOS, but
And that
for the
pays off
bond
the debt.
payments.
That's debt.
That's what.
All
we
right,
would be
well, we'll
doing.
circle back around.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we don't.
Madam Clerk?
Okay, we'll proceed with Christy Barnes, Chief Staff Attorney.
Please take them all together.
Mr. Chairman, with your
Except for
permission,
the last one.
Except
I'd like
for,
that we I'd like to request that we hold resolution number 2014-141, which is the resolution for the adoption of the budget.
So moved.
Second.
those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
And 153. Take it separately.
Take them all except for 153. Do that one separate.
Computer person.
Resolution number 2014-142 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County on behalf of Clayton County Juvenile Court to enter into an affiliation agreement and contract for services with the Georgia Court-appointed Special Advocate Association to accept grant funds and to set forth the terms and conditions under which the grant funds will be utilized, to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement and contract for services, and otherwise to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-143 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to accept a donation from Macy's Incorporated on behalf of the Clayton County Department of Parks and Recreation for the purpose of supporting the Maddox Road Park, to authorize the chairman to execute the donation on behalf of Clayton County, to execute any necessary documents, and to otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, all as may be required, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-144 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to enter into a license agreement with Serenity 7 LLC to sponsor and host a fashion show and dinner event at Clayton County International Park, to authorize the chairman to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-145 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to grant a special facility use request to Rainbow House Incorporated to sponsor and host a 5K race, 1K race, and tot trot at Clayton County International Park, to authorize the chairman to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, all as may be required, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-146 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to enter into a performance agreement with Freestyle Productions, providing for the terms and conditions under which musical entertainment will be performed at Clayton County International Park, to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement and otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-147 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to grant a special facility use request to the NAACP Act So to host a fundraiser at the South Clayton Recreation Center, to authorize the chairman to otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, all as may be required, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-148 is a resolution authorizing the county to enter into a services agreement with Motorola Solutions Incorporated, providing for the terms and conditions under which services will be rendered to the county to maintain the E911 communication system, to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement and otherwise to perform all other acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, all as may be required, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-149 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County on behalf of the Animal Control Unit to enter into a memorandum of understanding with citizen volunteers, providing for the terms and conditions under which animals in the county's custody are adopted, to authorize the chief of police or his designee to execute the memorandum of understanding and otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-150 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to accept seized vehicles from Clayton County Police Department drug investigations, to authorize the sale of such property in a manner as will be in the best interest of the county, to provide for the dispersal of sale proceeds, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-151 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to amend an aging sub-grant contract with the Atlanta Regional Commission, providing for services to be rendered in connection with older adult programs, to authorize the chairman to execute the amendments and otherwise to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, and to transfer any required match of local funds, all as may be required under the terms of the amendments, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. Resolution number 2014-152 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to enter into a contract with the Georgia Department of Human Services and in accordance therewith accept grant funds for the Family Connection Collaborative Plan, to authorize the chairman to execute the contract and otherwise to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget as needed to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes.
All right, is there a motion?
Move that we accept.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any questions on any other items?
I have a question or two.
Mr. Edmondson.
Thank you. Ms. Barnes, on Resolution 149, 2014-149, regarding the MOU for Animal Control Center, trying to understand a little bit of the details. So, this attached memorandum of understanding between Clayton County Animal Control Unit and a citizen volunteer, that starts off with Chief Porter welcomes you. This is a legally binding contract. It reads more like a welcome letter with a waiver of liability, but I'm just trying to get my head around it.
Well, it also includes the rules of conduct that each citizen volunteer is agreeing to abide by. It lets them know the terms and conditions of them being allowed as citizen volunteers in the animal control unit. It provides for certain privacy and security for citizens, average citizens that may be coming to the animal control unit. So it is more of a binding memorandum of agreement between the police department and anyone who wants to volunteer to provide those animal control services as requested and required by the chief of police.
So legally speaking, this is a binding contract between that citizen volunteer and the county?
Yes, if
Okay.
the board approves it.
So, for example, where it says here in this first paragraph after the chief welcomes you, I understand that some animals are euthanized at the kennel, and I assume all risks for any emotional or traumatic injury that I might suffer while volunteering at the kennel. So since this is a binding contract, it seems to me that the scope of this contract doesn't include non-traumatic injury, and that we would therefore be liable.
Non-traumatic injury?
Sure.
I believe that it goes on to say, just a second.
I also understand that prison inmate labor is used at the shelter, and that might be working in the same building as prison inmates. Doesn't say anything about non-traumatic injury.
To the extent that the agreement does not cover something like do you mean like a physical injury, someone tripping and falling?
Well, that's what it says. I mean, a dog bite. I mean, what's the definition, what's the legal definition of traumatic? You said this is a legal contract, so what's the specific letter? I'm just trying to protect the county. The intent of this I'm not against. I'm just trying to understand the language there.
To the extent that someone may indicate that they have some type of physical injury by tripping and falling, the county still would retain its levels of sovereign immunity for matters that are occurring on county-owned property.
So what you're saying is sovereign immunity, whereby which applies to when the county is conducting the duties and services
As a government.
as a government. So if a volunteer who signed a binding contract to help with dogs that excludes non-traumatic injury is helping us and hurts themselves, then that would be covered under sovereign immunity? It
Yes.
doesn't seem to make sense to me.
It does.
Yes.
Saying that it does?
It does. Assumption of a risk as well.
Okay, so if we have sovereign immunity, then why have this MOU to cover emotional and traumatic injury anyways?
To the extent that you have volunteers coming out to witness something that he or she may believe is an emotional experience, we wanted to make sure that was covered in the MOU.
But since it's sovereign immunity, why would we need to cover it again?
It's repetitive, but it's probably.
I think that it serves to make potential citizen volunteers aware of the fact that you are agreeing to waive any type of claims against the county for something that you may perceive as an emotional or a traumatic injury. So I think that it could be seen as redundant because the county does enjoy that sovereign immunity. But I think this document serves to put citizen volunteers on notice out of the gate that you may experience something that you believe is emotionally traumatic, but you are assuming that risk when you come to be a volunteer.
All right. Legally, if you say that's how it is, then I'll believe you. So the next question I have is in the resolution itself that, and I understand it ranks reference to the MOU that's attached, but under section 1, the first sentence, I just want to make sure that there's not going to be a conflict of language if something were to come up. It says, a memorandum of understanding with citizen volunteers providing for the terms and conditions under which animals in the county's custody and are unclaimed are adopted. So does that not obligate us to provide adoption by this mechanism, or should we change that verbiage to may be adopted, or am I nitpicking and legally speaking that doesn't matter either?
We can change that language.
Only if necessary legally.
No, I can understand why that is confusing, that it appears that the resolution is indicating or mandating that animals will be adopted, and that is not the case.
Okay, you see your recommendation is that we should change that verbiage?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the motion that was put forth and seconded, I'd like to make a recommendation that y'all amend that to include the changed verbiage as recommended by legal counsel.
I move to amend, what resolution is that? 2014-149, section 1, to include the language that Ms. Barnes just spoke about.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
He made the motion, you seconded it. Opposed? It's unanimous. As far
Thank you,
as
Commissioners.
That was just the amendment.
That was just amendment. Yes, thank you. So the original motion to accept all resolutions is properly moved and second. Any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, resolution number 2014-153 is a resolution authorizing Clayton County to appoint a county attorney, to establish the duties for the county attorney, to set compensation for such services, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget as needed to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense, to provide an effective date of this resolution, and for other purposes.
Is there a motion?
A motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Properly moved and second. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Rooks.
In section 2, on the second page, it states that the county attorney shall be available to assist in any other matters as requested by the chief staff attorney, the commissioners, or the chief operating officer. My concern is that when we have a department head, we allow other people to circumvent what the department head does with an outside vendor, if you will. So if we were to amend this to be the county attorney shall be available to assist in any other manners as requested by the chief staff attorney, I would feel more comfortable with it, because we don't have any other department heads that we circumvent and go to their vendor. You understand my position? So that's my request to change that language.
Is it a request or you put it in a motion?
Well, that's one. I don't know if anybody else wanted to have some conversation about it.
Hearing none, go ahead, you second.
Okay, and then the second part says, the county attorney shall not be paid a retainer for its services. The county attorney shall be paid the hourly rate previously appointed by this board for work performed on behalf of the county. For this to be sufficiently binding, it should have in this particular resolution what that previous hourly rate is. As a commissioner who wasn't privy to whatever the agreements were before, I don't know what that is. I don't think any citizen can track it back that far. So to the extent we need to identify that, it needs to be in this resolution.
I have a question, Commissioner Rooks, or maybe it's for Ms. Barnes. The hourly rate previously approved, would we say the hourly rate as approved by the board, or as approved and amended by the board? And what I'm getting at is, we've changed the hourly rate for legal counsel in the past, and I presume at some point in the future we will also. But if we put a finite number in this, we'd have to change our legal rates, plus come back and revisit these individuals. Is there individual resolutions, is that right? And if that is there a broader way to say what it is to your satisfaction, as well as allow it to be subject to the schedules?
At the board's pleasure, you can just put in here the actual hourly rate of pay. So to the extent that you decide to amend the resolution and the terms and conditions providing for how the county attorney is going to provide the services in terms of the services as provided as contemplated in this resolution, you would just amend the resolution accordingly to show if you have X rate of pay today, a different rate of pay in a year. You can do it that way.
Because it would be in line with amending a contract that we do all the time. Is that right? If the rate of pay changes, isn't it the same way when people's contracts increase? We have to come back and amend it anyway?
Yes.
So why not be specific about what it is? The previously approved, I don't know what that is.
We have a fee schedule, just like we do for library fines and business licenses for legal.
It's not attached. What is that? What is it? What is it?
What's that fee?
What's
Well,
the fee?
I wasn't arguing. I'm just saying, is there a way to, like, say subject to the fee schedule so that we don't have to revisit this
Right.
resolution every time that the fee schedule might change? I know it doesn't change that often. I think it's $195 an hour. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's $195 per hour. That's correct.
So when you say, let's say this gets approved today, the way that it is, when you approve a change to the fee schedule, you can't then say as previously approved. It's going to be former.
So we need to say at the hourly rate of specific.
Is there an
or
exhibit?
hourly
Is
rate
it-
as illustrated in.
No, there was no exhibit attached. I believe in 2012, I believe, the board passed a resolution that set the hourly rate of pay for outside counsel, except for the non-judicial foreclosure tax sales.
Why don't we just say per resolution, whatever the number is? So there's no question about what it is.
I will agree to that, yeah.
I have one last
Put the
question. I'm not trying to muddy the water, but this might be a Jack question. And Christy, you might know this, but it's just I had this conversation with Jack earlier, so I know he knows it. But either one of y'all, as I understand our previous conversation, Mr. Hancock, state law dictates that if we do have a county attorney, the county attorney is to be paid an hourly rate that's commensurate with all the other rates. Is that true? Or am I misstating that? And it can be any hourly rate? Okay, never mind then.
The only firm that's ever brought that issue to the board for approval of an hourly rate, and you did approve that hourly rate for our firm in 2012. I think
All right.
it took effect in April of 2012.
I don't have any more questions. I agree with what
that's-
y'all are doing.
So I had 2 points. The first one is what I think also should be amended. The county attorney shall be available to assist in any other matters as requested by the chief staff attorney. Is my request to change that language.
Okay.
So I believe there's a motion to approve and a second on this
On their
resolution.
Yes.
And so is that your motion to amend?
Well,
Yeah, yes. You
Your-
can do the motion, it was my motion, yes.
Are you
So we
gonna
can do a
amend
motion
it?
to amend, yes, those two changes. And
Okay.
if you want to repeat those.
Okay.
And so that's Ms. Rooks making the motion. Who's seconding this one?
Ms.
The
Hambrick
amendment?
Hambrick.
originated the motion, so she's gonna amend it.
She's going to amend it, okay.
to reflect the previously approved hourly rate of pay as approved in resolution number 2012, and we'll get that
Correct.
exact resolution number.
Or can we just the hourly rate of 195 and be done with it?
Were there any other rates in there?
That was it. I think that was it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So those are actually two amendments you're making.
Yes.
The county attorney shall be paid the hourly rate of $195
Mm-hmm. Yes.
for work performed on behalf of the county, is what the,
That's the first change. And she's made the amendment to make the second one, to put a period after chief staff attorney on the second line.
and to remove the commissioners or the chief operating officer.
Okay.
All right, before we take final vote, I have a question in reference to section 2, where it reads that the county attorney shall be responsible for representing the county and all of its employees and officials in all litigation matters, including ad litem notices and EEOC claims, unless, of course, there's a conflict of interest exists. Now, does this take away, right now in our procedure is when we outsource, we have a list of attorneys that we work with, correct?
There is no list.
Well,
It's just,
we refer it out to different
Yes.
law firms.
yes,
Minority law firms as well as local law firms we have interacted with, correct?
yes.
So this takes that away.
Unless
says
there's
all, unless there's a conflict of interest. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just follow up on that with, make sure I understand something? Ms. Barnes, as I understand the role of chief staff attorney, and especially within the context of this proposed county attorney, it's still the role of, or is and still will be the role of the chief staff attorney to delegate legal work to whomever until such time you bring forth the policy.
No, with the adoption of this resolution, all litigation matters would be assigned to the county attorney.
I mean non-litigation, everything that's beyond the scope of this,
Yes.
contracts, what have you.
Non-litigation, yes, you are correct. Non-litigation would continue as I assign that to outside counsel.
So
or
nothing
we
would
keep it
really
in-house.
change than what we have now to whoever it is, local or minority or whomever.
Well, to that extent, Jack, can I ask you a question? When it comes to EEOC claims, do you guys traditionally handle the charges, the EEOC charges, or do you handle it after the plaintiff has brought a lawsuit, like the mediation parts of it? Is that what your firm handles or traditionally has handled?
We've been handling all EEOC claims from the time that it is initially made a claim through the EEOC process, and then if there's a subsequent suit.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, Ms. Barnes, do you want me to give this back to you for revisions before they sign it? I'll just leave it here.
Oh, they need to vote.
Need
to
a vote.
approve.
Oh, she's
Okay,
talking
all
about,
right.
never mind. All right.
I'll change it.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. It's
Okay,
4
so
to
it's
1.
4 to 1, JT opposed?
I was against it, yes.
And Mr. Chairman, we need an executive session for real estate, litigation, and personnel.
Okay.
Okay, and next we have 2 board appointments. The first is appointment to the library board. The term of Pamela Lake expires at the end of this month. The new term is for 3 years, expiring June 30th of 2017.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Board, I would like to reappoint Pamela Lake to the Library Board.
Second.
Probably moved in second. Those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, and the next appointment is appointment to the Tourism Authority Board, and this is to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Clint Magby, who resigned. The unexpired term ends on June 30th of 2016.
Mr. Chairman, I move to appoint Damon Williams to the Tourism Authority Board.
Second.
Probably moved in second. Those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, and we have for decision only the zoning petition from the May 20th regular business meeting. This is Dr. Carol Brady, who is requesting a CUP from Article 3.1 Agricultural District to allow for a group home for a residential substance abuse treatment facility. And I will note that Dr. Brady sent this afternoon a letter changing his request from 10 residents upon the property located on Mount Zion to 8 residents. and it's currently zoned agricultural, and it's approximately 2.10 acres of land. This is in Commissioner Michael Edmondson's district.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Consistent with my motion from the previous meeting and for the same reasons, including the inconsistencies of this with our future land use map, I recommend denial of the application.
I'll second it.
Probably moved in second. Any questions or statements? Hearing none. Those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, unanimous? Okay. If there's no further discussion, we need a motion to go into executive session.
I move we go into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Probably moved in second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.